Deep in the heart of America's swamps, where no human dares to tread, something sinister lurks. It's a place where nature's fury knows no bounds and deadly creatures reign supreme. Here, American crocodiles have evolved into cunning hunters, developing human-like intelligence and strategic prowess. They've turned hunting into a game, a thrilling pursuit that mirrors the tactics of the most skilled predators in the animal kingdom. Our story begins here. A long time ago, this swamp was the hideout of a notorious criminal gang. The police had been on their trail for years. One fateful night, the police finally raided the gang's hideout. What followed was a fierce gunfight. The criminals, desperate to destroy the evidence, hurled chemicals into the swamp. As the police closed in, some of the gangsters were apprehended, but others managed to escape into the murky waters, carrying their secrets and their sins with them. The poisonous chemicals seeped into the river, forever altering the lives of the creatures that inhabited it. Among them were the American crocodiles. They were already formidable predators, but now they were about to become something more, something terrifying. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The river became a battleground, a testing ground for the crocodiles' newfound abilities. They grew larger, stronger, and more cunning. Their intelligence sharpened, and their strength became a force to be reckoned with. They roamed the swamp with an arrogance born from their mutations, ruling their domain with an iron fist, or should I say, iron bill. Local news began broadcasting chilling reports of their attacks. Tourists who ventured too close found themselves vanished without a trace. Those who dared to steal crocodile eggs met a gruesome fate, their bodies later discovered as offerings at the crocodiles' nests. Fear gripped the residents. They shared eerie tales around campfires, keeping their children close and their weapons handy. The name of the place was stricken from maps, and the locals erected warning signs at the river's edge. In the present day, Kyle, a determined biology student, embarked on a journey to scatter her brother's ashes on one of Florida's islands. Her brother had been taken away by robbers just a month ago. Kyle couldn't bear the thought of him being alone, so she decided to fulfill his last wish. Accompanying her on this 21-hour-long drive was her best friend, Alice. Alice's own problems were piling up. Her mother had withdrawn $2,000 from her account, and rumors swirled that she was involved in gambling. To make matters worse, Alice had recently sold her car and had no way to return home, so she decided to join Kyle on her adventure. Along the way, they picked up Malika, a friend of Kyle's brother. Kyle had never liked Malika, but she knew she couldn't go alone. Also joining them was Malika's new boyfriend, Sam. Together, the four friends headed towards the Florida Islands. As they journeyed, Alice confessed to Kyle that she needed to earn extra money. Kyle, lost in her own thoughts, didn't pay much attention. She couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt she carried. She blamed herself for her brother's death. Just a month ago, Kyle and her brother had been inside the store when a robber entered demanding money. Without hesitation, her brother had lunged at the robber, trying to save a young child who had been grabbed, but another accomplice had immediately pulled out a gun, shooting Kyle's brother dead in front of her eyes. The traumatic memory was seared into her mind. She felt responsible for what had happened. As they continued their journey, they stopped at a gas station. Kyle couldn't help but notice the strange behavior of the locals. Everyone seemed tense, their faces etched with worry. An old man sitting nearby muttered something about the river being dangerous. Kyle, intrigued, engaged the man in conversation. He shared stories of the swamp's sinister past and the unsettling events that had transpired there. Suddenly, a piercing screech echoed through the air, sending chills down their spines. The old man's face drained of color as he whispered urgently, "Don't go into the water." Before Kyle could inquire further, Malika interrupted, eager to put the unsettling encounter behind them. She revealed that she had booked a small plane. They could take it to get there faster. Kyle, apprehensive about flying, could only agree. Malika, however, didn't seem to share her concerns. With a determined glint in her eye, she led the way, eager to reach their destination. And so their journey took a perilous turn as they stepped into the unknown, unaware of the terrifying trials that awaited them in the heart of the swamp. Stay tuned to see what happens next. Will they survive the night? Only time will tell. A group of friends decided to take a small plane and go on a trip to a nearby lake. Upon arrival at the small airport, they met Frank, an unshaven pilot with bloodshot eyes who reeked of stale alcohol. Despite everyone's uneasiness about the pilot's apparent intoxication, he was allowed to board the plane with them. After takeoff, one man kept talking loudly on his phone, which annoyed everyone else on the plane. Suddenly, the plane shook violently. "Oh no," said the pilot. "The engines have failed." They tried the radio, but it was dead. They were on their own. The pilot put the plane into a descent and they landed in the river near the swamp. Miraculously, everyone survived except the co-pilot and one passenger. While the co-pilot went missing, Frank started searching the wreckage for the woman who had boarded with her brother's ashes. "I'll dive into the water," said Kyle, her boyfriend, and dove right in. He managed to find the box with the ashes, but they soon realized they were in big trouble. "This is ridiculous," said Kyle. "A rescue team will be here any minute." "Don't hold your breath," Frank replied. "I'm sorry, but the plane wasn't registered, so no one's coming to save us." They were on their own. Meanwhile, Kyle insisted they should start collecting survival supplies, but Frank wanted to get to higher ground. They all started walking into the swamp when suddenly Alice ran off. No one noticed she had taken a big bag of crocodile eggs with her. She planned to sell them to the highest bidder. Frank waded into the water to retrieve something from the wreckage. Everyone watched in horror as a massive crocodile lunged out of the water and killed the co-pilot. Everyone screamed and ran away. Back on land, Kyle explained that these crocodiles were extremely territorial and would kill anyone who entered their space. They didn't want to stick around and find out just how vicious the reptiles were, so the group immediately started moving again. But where to go? What to do? They were lost in a swamp with thousands of angry crocodiles. That night, they sat around a fire when one man went aside to take a phone call. Everyone watched in horror as a crocodile attacked and killed him. The next morning, they found his body, torn limb from limb. "These weren't ordinary crocodiles," Frank said. "They hunt for sport." Rumor has it a huge female crocodile was the most dangerous of all. Suddenly, Alice shouted, "Look!" pointing to a house in the distance. The group started running towards it, but not fast enough. The crocodiles attacked again, dragging the woman into the water. Somehow, the people managed to escape and run into an old wooden house. The crocodile slammed against the door, trying to break in. One girl's leg got caught and she was almost dragged outside. But Kyle managed to pull her back. Outside, the reptiles kept circling and attacking, but the people inside were safe. Except for one girl, Malika, who only had eyes for herself. While the others tried to help one another, she focused only on collecting sticks and stones to defend herself. Then suddenly they heard a woman scream. She was outside. They listened helplessly as the crocodiles tore her apart. The end. The girl who had been bitten on the leg by the crocodile had her wound tightly wrapped with makeshift cloth to stop the bleeding. Everyone was exhausted and terrified. Complete darkness had now fallen. The silence outside the wooden house felt even more frightening than the noise. They all knew the crocodiles were out there, lurking in the dark, waiting for the right moment. Inside, everyone sat holding their breath. No one knew how long this night would be, or how horrifying it would become. Trapped inside the wooden house, they trembled in fear, while crocodiles lay in ambush all around outside. Malika insisted that it was better to stay inside, but the others argued that if they remained locked in, they would eventually starve to death. Captain Frank suggested they vote. The result was clear. Only Malika wanted to stay, while the rest decided they had to keep moving and find a way out. Before leaving, Kyle warned everyone that if they encountered crocodiles, the only option was to run. Never look back, or survival would be impossible. With heavy hearts, they abandoned the wooden house. Now every step was a battle with death itself. Captain Frank gave them the final tips for surviving a crocodile encounter. If one comes at you and grabs you, hit its nose or eyes with all your strength, that's its weakness. But remember, if it drags you underwater, there's nothing anyone can do. His words sent a chill down their spines. Frank slowly opened the door, and they stepped outside. Their breaths were held tight, but luckily, no crocodiles were visible. They moved cautiously. The biggest problem was the injured girl, who could barely walk. Her strong boyfriend supported her, but progress was slow. Malika grew frustrated, snapping that the injured girl was putting everyone in danger. Now, the threat came from two sides: predators outside and conflict within. After some arguing, they reached a wide river that had to be crossed. The water looked deadly. One of the guides suggested building a raft from logs and floating across. Malika was terrified, believing crocodiles were hiding there. But the guide explained that it had rained the night before. Crocodiles couldn't regulate their body temperature well after rain, so they usually hid in colder places. For now, the risk was lower. The group quickly began building the raft, while the injured girl sat by the shore, watching them lash the logs together. After some effort, the raft was ready. Just as they prepared to board, Kyle noticed her brother's bag lying by the riverbank. A boy rushed to grab it. But suddenly, the water rippled and crocodiles surfaced. Hearts pounded violently. Two crocodiles slowly advanced toward them. The injured girl made her decision. She looked at her boyfriend one last time, whispered a few words, and then leapt into the water, sacrificing herself to distract the crocodiles. Her boyfriend screamed, but Frank and Sam held him back. In moments, the crocodiles clamped their jaws on her and dragged her under. Only blood and ripples remained. Everyone was shattered, but they had no choice but to move forward. Eventually, they reached an old factory marked on their map. Bullet casings lay scattered across the floor. Frank explained they belonged to a special task force, but the factory itself hadn't been on the map. He suspected it was a secret site for illegal operations, once raided by police. As they cautiously approached the building, the ground shook. Frank pressed everyone to hide behind some nearby cars. Peeking from behind the vehicle, they saw a massive crocodile lumbering toward them. Its eyes were fixed on the group, and its open jaws revealed rows of sharp teeth. The crocodile kept advancing, seemingly unafraid of the humans hiding nearby. It circled the car, its nostrils flaring as it searched for them with its keen sense of smell. The group huddled together, their breaths shallow and silent. Having failed to find Frank, Malika called out loudly, hoping to draw some attention. The crocodiles snapped their heads up, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Frank, if you're here, please come help me," she shouted, her voice echoing across the cavernous space. Instead of coming to her aid, the lead crocodile lunged toward her, baring its teeth. Startled, Malika stumbled back, nearly losing her balance. But before she could react, a hand clamped over her mouth, pulling her back from the edge. It was Frank. He glared at her angrily. "What are you doing? Do you have any idea how dangerous this is?" he hissed, his eyes blazing with fury. Malika looked down at her feet, ashamed. "I'm sorry. I just thought we could work together, but I guess I was wrong." Frank shook his head, his jaw still clenched tight. "There's no time for this, Malika. We need to focus on getting out of here." As he tried to pull her along, she stopped in her tracks, pointing to the floor. "Look what they did here. How could anyone be so brutal?" Frank followed her gaze, and his heart sank. The walls were covered in bloodstains, making it clear that the people who had been brought here hadn't been taken out alive. He sighed, knowing they couldn't afford to waste time here. "We'll come back for these people, I promise. But right now we need to find a radio. That's our best chance of getting help." He split the group in two, deciding to search for a radio with Malika and Alice. Kyle, Sam, and George stayed behind to keep watch over the wounded. Not long after, Frank found what he was looking for, tucked away in a corner. He grinned, feeling a surge of hope. Maybe they still had a chance. But as he turned to share the good news, he saw that Malika was nowhere to be found. Panic surged through him. Where could she have gone? Just then, George emerged from the shadows, his eyes wide with worry. "Frank, we need your help. It's Malika. She's hurt." As they rushed to the others, Frank heard the commotion and turned to see Malika dangling over the edge of a hole, her ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. She screamed for help, tears streaming down her face. Without hesitation, Frank leaped forward, reaching out for her. He hauled her up, but she was too heavy. He cried out, bracing himself against the wall as she slipped further. "Help me," she gasped, her voice trembling. With her dangling so close to the hungry crocodiles, Frank knew he couldn't hold on much longer. But just when he thought he might lose his grip, the others arrived, pulling her to safety. Gasping for breath, Malika apologized for her actions. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to cause trouble," she whispered, her eyes downcast. Frank, still shaken by the ordeal, stared off into the distance, his mind racing. Then, in a low voice, he uttered the words that would haunt him forever. "It's too late, Malika. There's nothing left for us here." At that moment, the ground beneath them gave way, sending Captain Frank tumbling into the darkness below. As the others watched in horror, a giant crocodile clamped down on his head and dragged him away. There was nothing they could do to save him. Days later, Kyle gazed out at the endless expanse of the ocean, her heart heavy with sadness. Beside her, Sam squeezed her shoulder in silent support. They had made it to a nearby bridge, where the rescue team had set up camp. A helicopter was already there, ready to take them out of the desolate landscape. "I can't believe it," Kyle whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. "I never imagined it would end like this." Sam nodded, understanding her grief all too well. He too was mourning the loss of his companions. Together, they had faced unimaginable horrors and survived, only to lose so much in the end. "Are you sure there's nothing left there, Kyle?" Sam asked quietly. Kyle shook her head, her eyes filled with sadness. "There was for me, but now there's nothing left but memories and ashes." She clutched the urn containing her brother's remains tightly to her chest, feeling a surge of love and longing. It had been an arduous journey, but now she was finally taking him home. As the helicopter lifted them off the ground, Kyle caught one last glimpse of the desolate landscape below. She knew she would never forget what had happened here, the horrors they had witnessed, or the sacrifices that had been made. But she was determined to honor their memory by moving forward and embracing a new chapter in her life.